Hello, welcome to class. I'm Christine Pence, your instructor. I've been teaching at Northampton Community College for 20 years. I enjoy teaching a lot, and I really like teaching online. These little bubbles kind of show you a little bit about me. On the lower left, I traveled with our students to China last year. We have a terrific partner in Chinese University. They hosted us again this year. So we do study abroad, and one of my great enjoyments in life is traveling with students to do study abroad. Uh, Immediately above my head, or to the right of me, is a cup of coffee. I love coffee. That was actually in Egypt. That was another trip that NCC took with students. To the right of that is a bookshelf. My upper attic is stuffed with books, and I'm currently sweltering because I've got the air conditioner off so that it doesn't make noise while I'm doing this recording. Below that is, I believe that's the Bach choir. I took my mom to a Bach choir concert. I really enjoy church, and I enjoy listening to music. Below that is my cat. That's OW and me, and we just lost his brother, so we are sitting there holding hands together. And below that is Petronilla, a kitten I just got in order to give OW a companion. So there you have it. That's a little bit about me, and move on. Let's talk about the class. So this video is going to walk through the syllabus. I'm going to just kind of leave it to you to read the syllabus and absorb the details, but these are the highlights, the things this particular lecture covers. You need to get the book, and you need to sign up for Padlet. We're going to talk about the goals of the course, the major assignments that make up the grade, and then how do you ask for help if you need it. So first, get the book. I've given you the link there. Just get on to the student section of the website and go to the bookstore and type in History of Science 210, and that should pop up the book. And once you get it, it looks like that. I recommend the hardback or the paperback. It's pretty cheap. If you feel like you'd like to listen to it, then you might go on Amazon, or you might get a version of it that you can listen to. Some students prefer that. But it is not going to break the bank. Everything else for the class is going to be online. Padlet is also free. Please sign up. You'll need to sign up because we will be using that to create a timeline together, and that'll be a part of the class, so go ahead and do that. And once you've done that, log in with your NCC email, and then you will post on the timeline. You'll see that. I have instructions there, what to do to get into the class, and that is in the in Brightspace. You'll be able to find it there. If you have any questions, send me an email, no problem. So what is this course about? Well, of course, it's about history, and history is a story. It's probably true. Not every part of it is true, as you know, but as kids, you learn history, and it shapes your view of right and wrong, and it also shapes your understanding of cause and effect. It sort of says, like, here's how we got from there to here, from then to now. And so you kind of want to ask, why does knowing our past help us? Why do we even want to tell ourselves about the past? And what creates the conditions for change in society? That's a pretty important question. So those are the history questions, and we're going to situate those in the history of science, which is a fascinating story. We're going to look at events and trends. We're going to try to answer what happened and also why those things happen. What is significant? What shapes our world? How did we get here? So the historian's mindset, there are three things that we really kind of think about. First of all, how do you know it happened? What's the evidence that this happened? Who told you so? Where was it written down? Do we trust that source? So we look for context and proof. Then the second thing a historian asks is, does it matter? How do we know it matters? Who does it affect? Maybe you know a whole lot of little facts, but none of them actually matter in any way. So how do we identify what's significant? And then one of the big questions is, could it have happened any other way? Could this have happened otherwise? And so we call that a meaningful inflection point. Was there something in that way that was unavoidable or could only have happened because one person or several people did something specific? So those are the questions, the big questions of history, and those are historians' kinds of questions. So let me say it in another way. I hope this course will do you some good. I really hope that you apply these habits of mine to your future life. I want you to make good judgments about your own actions and about the implications of those actions. I want you to decide what's true, what's good, and what can be changed. I want you to gain optimism from knowing that I think very little is inevitable. Take courage from the thought that enormous good has been accomplished by people who are relatively weak, as well as those who are relatively strong. I want you to reflect soberly on the unintended and unanticipated consequences of many scientific developments. So, another way to answer the question, what is this course about? I'm going to give you a definition of science that I hope has what I would call legs, meaning I hope it will stick with you and you will use it in future courses and in future understandings of the world. So, in order to improve our lives and satisfy our curiosity, we develop and use specialized instruments to make observations so that we can explain the hidden causes of the natural world and predict future events. That definition is going to obtain through the whole course, and it's going to be something we pick apart and rethink about and rethink about. And as you take other science courses, I hope you will think about this definition: specialized instruments to make observations, to explain hidden causes, and predict future events. Yet another way to answer, what is this course about? So over time we change and our ideas change. Why do we change? So I've got a little chart, a kind of a model for describing the context of scientific change over time. And we're going to refer to this model also many times. So if you think about it, start with observers on the bottom. So people are the ones who define the problems in their lives. They're the ones who say, this is a problem that I want to solve, whether that is death or time or travel or trade or energy or who are we. We're the ones who decide what we're going to obsess about, pay attention to. Then the next thing we do is we develop an instrument to help us. We use something to extend our powers of observation, or to sharpen our powers of observation, or to give us energy to do the things we want to do. And I've got a little list up there of some of the things that are pretty important to the scientific development, but there are others, of course. And using the problems we define and the instruments we use to probe those problems, we end up developing organizing ideas. These are the things that make us, we think, are true. This is the way the world works. And there are lots of those. Some of them are really big and some of them are kind of small. But those are the ones that we use to organize our thoughts and to say this is going to be true now and in the future. And that can be anything from Earth-centric universe, or to the idea of algebra, or to breeding of animals, or to the double helix, or what we think of geologic time. And these ideas change as we find problems with those ideas, as we find facts that don't fit. So slowly but surely, we continue changing our ideas and we continue moving, you could say, forward. But always, it's driven by observers looking at problems, developing instruments, and coming up with organizing ideas which will then be challenged in the future. But that's only one way of thinking about progress. You can also think about progress as human happiness. And human happiness is not necessarily tied to scientific progress. And we'll talk about that in this course. So these are the formal course definitions, or the course, what's the course about? So here it is. Be able to place scientific discoveries and the people who made them in historical context. I've got a few pictures here for you. Be able to explain the scientific method and the role of the imagination in the scientific method. Understand and explain how scientific learning and knowledge acquisition necessarily cross the boundaries of knowledge or disciplines. Understand and describe the relationship between science, technology, and the liberal arts. And also show how historical understandings of culture and gender are framed within and framed by science. So these are some of the goals of the course, and these are the outcomes of the course, which I hope you will understand as we go through it. All right, let's move on to something that I think you will want to know. How do you get a good grade in this class? So there are 5 general types of assignments. There's discussion board posts, and there are 10 of those, which total up to 200 points. You have 20 points for each post. There's a summary of the book. There's 7 of those required, 7 posts required, and they're also 20 points each. There's a timeline, the Padlet, which I mentioned. That's 4 posts that are required at 20 points for each. There's an interview with a scientist, and there's a couple of elements in that, and that is totals 80 points. And then the last is the Journal of Learning, Curiosity, and Reflection. There are 3 of those. There's 2 journals that are worth 200 points and 1 final journal that is worth 100 points. So that's how the course grade is totaled up. That's how things are kind of weighed out. And one of the things I think you should pay attention to is that the journal has a relatively high weight, but that everything else is kind of even. So if you just keep up with stuff, you should be fine. Okay, now I want to push this whole business of the assignments fitting the course goals. So let's talk about that. So the discussion boards help you to place scientific discoveries and the people who made them in historical context. The discussion board posts about the video lectures. We'll do that for number 1 and number 2, right? So they kind of match those particular course outcomes. So why are we doing this? Because this is the goal of the course. So far, so good. You're seeing that I'm making a connection here between what the assignments are and what the goals of the course are. The scientist interview kind of covers all of the goals of the course. It helps you to think about all of these problems because all of them will come up in what a scientist will tell you about his or her career. The Padlet timeline also reinforces the business of a timeline, historical context. That's really meant to hit that first goal of the course. It's also fun. The Journal of Learning, Curiosity, and Reflection really hits those lower 3 bullets. Understand and explain how scientific learning and knowledge acquisitions crosses the boundary of knowledge, understanding and describing the relationship between science, technology, and the liberal arts, and understanding gender and culture. Those are all things that the Journal of Learning, Curiosity, and Reflection will allow you to talk about. The summary, the reading also crosses all of the goals of the course, and I will also say that the discussion board posts about the video lectures will in certain weeks focus on culture and gender. So this is just a kind of a model or graphic, I guess would be the best way to say it, a graphic of how the assignments fit the goals of the course. There's another question you might be asking yourself. Why do we have a class if I could learn this stuff by myself? And the answer is, I hope you can't learn this stuff by yourself. I hope that the class delivers something to you that is unique. And part of the goal of having a class is to deliver to you something that you couldn't get by just watching the lectures on your own. So I think of it as learning as having maybe two ways, right? So there's yourself. You can consolidate your knowledge by yourself, or you can be curious by yourself. You can consolidate your knowledge by being with others, for instance, studying with others for an exam. Or you can be curious with others. For instance, you're given a project or a group project and you have to do it together and you have to go do research together. So let's kind of take a look at those assignments in that light. The discussion board posts. Okay, yes, you write about it yourself, but then you respond to other people. So the discussion board posts kind of cross over between consolidating knowledge by yourself and consolidating knowledge with other people. The summary of the reading is really you for you. So that is you consolidating your knowledge by yourself for yourself. I will give you feedback on your summaries. So in that way, you and I will talk about how you're learning and what you're doing. The Padlet timeline is definitely you consolidating your knowledge with other people. You will all contribute to that. And so you will all learn from each other in that way. The scientist interview is structured so that you will set up questions that you would like to ask, and then you will vote for the questions that the whole class will ask. So in that sense, you will follow your curiosity with other people. And the Journal of Learning, Curiosity, and Reflection is set so that you need to respond to somebody else as you're putting your knowledge together. So that is going to be one where you are following your curiosity by yourself, and you're also following your curiosity with other people. That's how these 5 kinds of assignments line up. And that's how I hope you will see that the purpose of a class is uniquely so that you couldn't just do this on your own. All right, last thing. I really like students. I love teaching. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to be your instructor. And I start by assuming that you're going to do well and you're going to enjoy it. Um, Something I think is important. You did not sign up for this class in order to replicate the real world. You signed up to be better prepared to improve the world you live in. So that means I'm not going to have small, mean-spirited rules that just crush you. The rules I establish are going to be to serve the class, to serve the learning community. They're meant to support your learning. So if you're in trouble and you need help, ask for help. My approach is going to be fair and flexible. So I've given you an estimate for how much time I think the class will take at any given week, 3 to 5 hours, maybe a little more. You should set aside the time. That's my cat. That's OW. You should set aside the time necessary to do well in this course and plan to talk to me about how you're doing. And, take the subject seriously, focus on learning the material, love what you learn, and think about how it applies to your life, and enjoy the company of the others who are with you. Don't worry needlessly or be unnecessarily stressed. Be persistent, work hard, and stay in communication with me.